forecast here. We got more heat on the way that'll be arriving over the next couple of days. So enjoy this afternoon. Should be a beauty. All right, let's do current conditions, and you can see those current conditions. Let's see if I can move my maps and show you what else is going on. And it's pretty quiet. We have a few clouds, especially kind of north of D.C., billowing up here. Got a little more moisture in the atmosphere than yesterday. As far as rain chances, I think we're going to be okay there. We're not going to get big storms later this afternoon. So another dry day. And the only story here is, this is the last of the really good stuff. The winds will be shifting out of the south and southwest over the next couple of days, and the heat will start to get turned up. There's a live look at the satellite radar. You can see eastern half of the country pretty quiet. Yeah. So that's not a bad thing. We'll keep that pattern going here for another 24 to 48 hours. By the end of the week, we all know that comfortable air masses in the month of July are often short-lived, and this one will be too, as high pressure, I was going to show you, high pressure builds off to the south. And look what happens to our numbers, Guy. We go from 86 today, 90 tomorrow. That's where we should be, by the way. Both days look dry. To hazy, hot, and humid. Friday, 97. Heat index Friday, Saturday, and Sunday up over 100 each day. And we're likely to get heat advisories and perhaps some late-day storms each day as well as we get back into that summertime pattern we all know so well.
Yeah, gosh, I have loved the past couple of days. Just picture perfect.
Yeah, it's been real nice.
Thanks, Tucker. All things weather right here on the Live Zone. Guys, if you haven't already done so, make sure you download the Fox local app. That way you can take that forecast with you on the go. All right, guys, let's start off with the Commanders training camp, where wide receiver Terry McLaurin was a no-show this morning. McLaurin is in the middle of negotiations with the team this week regarding a contract extension. Head coach Dan Quinn talking about that and more during his pre-practice news conference.
NFL, and I don't judge it or get too worked up about it. I know Adam and his team they're working as hard as they can, with Terry, and so the best thing I can do, honestly, in this space is put all the attention and the focus to go doing what we love them. So I know they're working really hard to go do that, but it's part of the business of our league, and this happens on teams all over. And so the longer you've been in it, the more you recognize that's just part of how things go.
And it's par for the course, as they say. Joining us now to discuss this and so much more is Kelsey Nicole Nelson, sports analyst, back here on the Live Zone. Always good to see you, Kelsey. Welcome back to the show.
Good to see you, Guy. Thank you so much. I wish it was under better circumstances. I know there's a lot of sad faces right now in the DMV Commanders fans.
Yeah. Have you seen them? Tell me, have you seen them? In the case of the Commanders, that's not the case. You heard the coach talking about it. The question is, with regard to morale, Kelsey, how do you think that's playing a role, if any, surrounding the football team overall?
I think right now, everybody's focused on the season, right? The Commanders know they're coming off a elite season, right? A season that nobody saw for Washington. And also everybody understands it's just business. We've heard guys like Zach Ertz, the tight end for Washington, say he hopes for the best. There's still a lot of time between now and the beginning of the season. So I think morale is still high. Of course, you do miss Terry. Let's think about it. Deebo Samuel was brought in to be a complement on that offensive track for the Washington Commanders. But all in all, again, it's a business. And we have to remember, old money ain't new money in the National Football League right now. So every guy in that locker room has been through contract negotiations. They've been through these talks. And so they understand at the end of the day, Guy, it's just business. But of course, Terry is missed. He's been a guy that's been here since 2019, 5 consecutive 1,000-yard seasons. So I think for morale, he's missed. But again, the Commanders are up and up. I think, remember, Noah Brown being back was really huge. He did get carted off at minicamp earlier this summer for the Commanders. So seeing him back, I think, also has brought morale back. Him right now being wide receiver 2 since Terry's not there. So all in all to say, he's missed, but again, it's a business, guy, and this just happens in football.
Yeah, it's a business. I'm on the side of talent, being that I happen to be talent in this case, and the talent of TV, radio, and all of that. So I get where he's coming from, but then he's knocking at the door of 30. And what I mean by that is that you got to look at the flip side. In this case, you got to look at the Commanders, and they're saying, hey, typically when a wide receiver hits the age of 30, yeah, you might be the bomb.com now. However, age will really play a role with regard to what you're able to do. Do you think that's the case here?
Of course, we have talented wide receivers coming out of college now every single season, right, that are being drafted. And yes, he turns 30 in September. I know that's not old to most of us, but in football it is. But Terry, again, has been very qualified, very talented. And I think part of what the Commanders want moving forward, Adam Peters talked about him being loved in the building, but also, again, on the business side, remember, he's turning 30 in September, and he's looking at trying to get about $30 million a year, which is what the top NFL wide receivers are getting, guys like Jamar Chase. But also Terry is looking at guys like T. Higgins in Cincinnati Garrett Wilson over with the New York Jets, who just got $90 million guaranteed and all these long offseason deals. And he's like, where's my money at? I think he knows he can still be top and elite. Look, the Commanders just brought in Von Miller, who's older as well. And I know he's not going to demand, obviously, the money that Terry got. But again, I think Commanders have to look long term. And I do think Terry will still continue to deliver. Again, he's been a top wide receiver talent. I don't think he's seen like that in the national space. I think there's a lot of people saying, hey, Terry McLaurin is good and talented. But I'll tell you right now, I'm going on radio later in New Orleans, and there seems like the New Orleans Saints, who have had 2 unexpected retirements, and they're looking at guys like Terry. So all in all to say, I think Terry knows what he's done. The holdout is a thing that we've seen now players do to get paid. And at the end of the day, I think he does deserve to get paid. Commanders are going to have to be real with him if they, again, want to look at the longevity and keeping what's happening in Washington.
Yeah, in the words of Rodney King, can't we all get along? And hopefully that can be the case with Terry McLaurin and the Commanders real soon. Okay, so Kelsey, I always get really giddy during this time of the year because, yes, football is back in a major way. And guess who is also back in a major way? Jaden Daniels, that according to head coach Dan Quinn, who says he's coming in hot.
I think when you talk about Jaden Daniels, one of the top things from training camp was he threw a dime to Deebo Samuel. So again, we're super excited for where he left off from last season. And honestly, we just loved seeing him have fun this offseason. Very, kind of chill guy, seeing him hanging with his mom, seeing him in juju as well, and all the rumors kind of continuing to escalate. But now he's back to football, back to business. There's a lot of attention on the Commanders right now, and it's largely because of guys like JD5. So all that to say, we're seeing that he is starting where he left off, and we know he's only going to get better. Remember, folks, second season in the National Football League, and he delivered so much in his first. So a lot of the offense will depend on him. I talked last time we talked, Guy, about the offensive enhancements that Washington had made on the offensive line. And so Washington is all in on Jaden Daniels, kind of opposite of Terry, a young guy that they're investing in as they look at the future of this franchise.
Well, Jaden Daniels delivered last year. Hopefully he'll deliver this year. And all I can tell you is that you delivered right now. Yet again, we've been speaking with Kelsey Nicole Nelson, sports analyst, kind enough to join us right here on the Live Zone. Truly appreciate you, Kelsey. Hey, don't forget, guys, starting this Sunday, Fox 5 will be at Commanders training camp every day. We're going to have a special show streaming on Fox Local beginning at noon. Yep. Mark it on your calendar. You can download Fox Local by scanning the QR code on your screen, and then you, my friends, will be good to go. Now on to the other big story of the day. Brian Kohberger, a former PhD student who pleaded guilty in the fatal stabbing of 4 University of Idaho students, is hearing from the victims' families in court for the first time as I speak. This as a judge considers his sentence for the crimes. Mr. Kohberger has already agreed to accept 4 consecutive life sentences as part of a plea deal that allows him to avoid the death penalty. Joining us now to discuss this and so much more is Mr. Dante Mills, attorney extraordinaire, back here on the Live Zone. Dante, always good to see you, sir. Welcome to the show.
Good to see you, Guy. Thanks for having me, as always.
All right, I have been listening for the past half hour to the testimony of the family and friends of the victims. I got to tell you, it's emotional. It's heart-wrenching, it pulls at the heartstrings, and it's something that just makes you think, dear God, how did all of this come to be? I would assume you have been watching it as well. Your take thus far?
Yes, Scott, this is an important part of our judicial system, the victim impact statement. And this is when you get to a sentencing, when someone has been found or has pled guilty, they're going to be sentenced. And we understand here that the sentence more than likely is going to be 4 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole, as you said, that allowed that plea deal allowed Kohberger to avoid the death penalty, but he still has to officially be sentenced. And they go through with this process, even though there's an agreement, so that the victims can, in fact, give their victims impact statement. We've heard from family members of the victims, roommates that were there, and it's very emotionally charged, but it gives people the opportunity to look Brian Kohberger in the eye and say, you took a piece of me away. And that's what they're doing. They're saying, you killed my daughter, my friend, my roommate. And I have a hard time understanding, processing that. But this will allow them to kind of speak their truth and hopefully to begin to patch themselves up, because this is the close of this very horrific chapter of a crime that should have never occurred.
It's the close, Dante, but we should also make mention that half of the victims' families did not agree with the actual terms that were brought forth. And so I'm curious, we know that the judge, in so many words, is expected to do just that, and that is 4 life consecutive sentences, but that doesn't have to be the case. The judge can actually change his or her mind.
Yes, the judge is not mandated to follow any plea agreements. The judge does have to follow through. However, it doesn't often happen. So I want to set some realistic expectations here when there is this kind of an agreement. And the purpose of this, just so people understand and say, well, if the case was so strong against Kohberger, why did the attorneys, the prosecutors give him the option to take a plea? It's because there's never a slam dunk in these cases, especially when you're talking about the death penalty and murder. There's a lot that you have to prove. There's a lot of nuances. And you offer that plea to take away any risk of this guy getting away with murder. So once he accepted that plea, it's guaranteed that he's going to, it removes any doubt. That's why the plea was offered. And I know some of the families weren't happy about that. They wanted his death penalty, but not everybody believes in that. I know that there was a split as to whether they should go after it or not, but this plea itself allowed for justice to be guaranteed and the families to still get their opportunity to address this person that did this heinous crime.
Prior to starting the show, we got reports that the judge, in essence, would have to direct the family members as to whether or not to direct their comments to the court or turn to Kohberger and direct those comments to him. Do we know what the judge ultimately ruled?
The judge allowed the victims to speak directly to Kohberger. And in fact, one of the fathers, as soon as he went up there, kind of turned the lecture towards him and began to speak directly towards him. I can't imagine that situation of being there and looking at someone that took away your child and having to address them. I know that people deal with it different ways, but there's this boldness there and this strength that comes from the family when they can say, I looked at this person and I told him what he took away from me, but I also told him that my life is not over. I'm going to process this and continue to put the pieces together. And that's a strength that I think every victim should have the opportunity to seize if they want to. There's some families who are not going to talk because they don't want to address them at all. But if you are in that situation and you think that that is beneficial for you and your family to have the opportunity to do that, I think the judge did the right thing. Don't restrict it. Let them talk directly to the man because he's the one that took away their loved ones' lives.
Speaking of talking directly to the man, we know at some point, perhaps, the judge will turn to Kohberger and ask him if he has something to say. Yet again, we know that he has not said anything with regard to why he picked that house, what it was that it really made him or forced him in his mind to go about to carry out this heinous act, why he went to the top floor of that house. Is that something that, one, you think the judge will ask and or allow? And if so, in the cases that you have dealt with in the past, has the actual, let's say, a person accused and now found guilty of this actually said something about it?
It really depends. The judge will ask. The defendant has the opportunity to speak on his own behalf at a sentencing. I just did a sentencing, and I generally have my clients, when they are sentenced, keep it very short, to apologize, accept responsibility. In this situation, I don't expect that to happen. We know that throughout this whole process, Kohberger has been very stoic. He hasn't showed any emotion at all. And even during these victim impact statements, you haven't seen any emotion as people are crying and kind of pouring their heart out. He's kind of sitting there stone-faced. I don't expect that to change. It would be kind of drastic if he just stood up and said, here's why I did it. You would hope that he did, because that would provide some answers and maybe some closure on top of this for some of the families, but I don't expect it. And if I was his attorney, I don't know if I would advise that, because you don't want this person to say the wrong thing to piss the judge off. And then the judge does want to not follow the plea agreement and say, no, I'm not going to allow this. Let's move forward with this case. And maybe it goes towards some kind of death penalty trial. So you don't want your client in this situation to kind of ruin or make things worse. And a lot of times speaking can only do that. So I don't expect him to say much, but the judge will give him the opportunity, because as a defendant here at his sentencing, he has the right to.
Well, now it's time to find out if just that will happen. Yet again, we have been speaking with Dante Mills, attorney extraordinaire. Thank you so much for your time, Dante. Truly appreciate you joining us on the Live Zone.
Thank you. Have a good afternoon.
All right, guys, let's go ahead and take a live look yet again at the trial that's currently underway for Mr. Brian Kohberger, who has pleaded guilty to 4 counts of murder. He now faces life behind bars. Let's take a listen in.
See, you haven't beat the system. You've simply entered a new one, where the rules are cruel and the consequences will never end. You are entering a place where no one will care who you are and no one will ever respect you. You will be forgotten, discarded, used, and erased. You will always be remembered as a loser, an absolute failure. And when those prison doors slam shut behind you, I hope that sound echoes in your heart for the rest of your meaningless days. I hope it reminds you of what we all already know. You're nothing. May you continue to live your life in misery. You are officially the property of the state of Idaho, where your fellow inmates are anxiously awaiting your arrival. But it's okay, because they're there to help you. Hell will be waiting. Quick message from our youngest daughter. Aubrey wanted to say, you may have received A's in high school and college, but you're going to be getting big D's in prison.
Thank you. Do we have more from the Gonzalez family, or are you?
Yes. Next would be Shannon Gray, the Gonzalez family attorney. He'll be reading statements from Kaylee Gonzalez's grandmothers.
Well,
Morning, Your Honor. Shannon Gray, the attorney for the Gonzalez family. I actually have 3 statements, one from her aunt and 2 from her grandparents. This is from her aunt, Tammy Butts. You, in the cloak of darkness, made a decision to turn our whole family's world upside down forever. You, in the cloak of darkness, took our Kaylee J. Gonzalez away from us all without hesitation. Never have you shown any remorse or regret. We just get creepy, non-expressive stares as you have your team of women defend you. Kaylee was a strong, kind, fun-loving, caring person, and she will greatly be missed by all her family and friends for the rest of our lives. She had goals in life that you took from her and us. We lose on watching her enjoying her life, working hard and building the future she wanted. She was ready to start that after college life. You, in the cloak of darkness, took it all away. You left us without her future wedding, her future children that she would have added to our family. No more talking to her on the phone, going for a coffee, celebrating holidays. It's all gone. You, in the cloak of darkness, gave each and every one of Kaylee's family members their own lifetime sentence. You, in the cloak of darkness, also took our Maddie Mae from all of us. She was so genuine, caring, polite. She was part of our family. You came in, harmed our children that were younger women than you in their own beds. You're nothing, you're a coward. It's not right that you have received life. I pray that you meet your end in the cloak of darkness, burn in hell. I have 2 other statements, Your Honor. This is Linda Lucan's statement. This is Kaylee's grandmother. I really don't know how to address something so inhumane, but I will try. Nothing in the past 2.5 years has made any sense. All I get is you cowardly went into a home at night, filled with what I'm sure you thought was all sleeping girls, and went on a vicious killing spree for no other reason but to appease your demonic urges. You took my granddaughter Kaylee from us, plus 3 other beautiful lives. You took my granddaughter Kaylee, beautiful, sweet-souled, doll-faced Kaylee, who was getting ready to start her amazing life, who had such a bright future, who was loved by so many, who you were so envious of. She had a life you could never have. You are so beyond human. You're definitely a demon from hell. I truly wish your punishment would be the same death you inflicted on our kids. But I think you will meet some new friends in prison who will be there just to help you. Thumbs up. I have one last statement, Your Honor. This is from Cheryl Gonzalez, Kaylee's other grandmother. John 1:5 says, "Light shines in the darkness, and the darkness overcomes it not." Somewhere in your life, some jealousy, envy, ego, something went dark. It pushed out all light until you became dark and evil. And when you saw my granddaughter and her friends, their light, because they have such a light, you couldn't stand it. Because the darkness in you could not stand the light in them. And so you decided to destroy it. Cowardly, you walked into their rooms in the dark and took their lives, hoping to get rid of your darkness. But you didn't. You failed. Because you know what was once a light shown only to their friends, families, and loved ones is now all over the world. Everyone sees it. Their smile, their beauty, their plans, everything they were and had. And you think you put a close to it, even that, but you didn't. Because they still exist. They are still light. They are still beautiful. You can never take that away. They will always be in the light of all eternity. And you will be in the darkness because you could not overcome it. You failed. I want you to be gone, more than gone. I want you to be cast out. Cast out from my life, from my family, from this earth. I will not allow your hatred to penetrate into my own soul. You did not get that power. You are evil, and in the end, evil is eradicated. You didn't take Kaylee's light, you spread it into the world. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. All right, are you moving to a different family now? All right, why don't we take a 10-minute recess, all right?
Yet again, Brian Kohberger about to be sentenced with regard to pleading guilty to 4 consecutive murders. That will happen momentarily. We'll take a quick break and we'll be right back. All right, guys, welcome back to the Fox 5 Live Zone. Well, earlier this week, U.S. Ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee, met with the Palestinian Authority Vice President in Ramallah. During the meeting, the two officials discussed efforts to create a ceasefire in the Gaza Strip. Fast forward to today, and Mr. Huckabee made a special visit to Israel, where he met with 2 leading rabbis of the ultra-Orthodox community. Now, for those of you who don't know, there are close to some 2 million ultra-Orthodox Jews living in Israel who don't necessarily get the same level of respect and acknowledgement that their peers do. Joining us now is the man who spearheaded the effort. I'm referring to none other than Rabbi David HOFSTEDTER, joining us on the Live Zone. Rabbi, truly appreciate your time and welcome to the show.
Pleasure to be here.
So before
very
by far, we're so glad to have you. Before we jump into the monumental meeting with Mr. Huckabee, I want my viewers to clearly understand exactly who I am speaking with. You are a successful real estate developer who happens to be the son of Holocaust survivors. You also founded an organization with the express purpose of restoring scholarship of Jewish texts to the levels they were at predating the Holocaust. And so with that, yet again, it is an honor, sir, to have you on the show.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Yes,
So,
that is the case. I'm a son of Holocaust survivors, both my mother and father, and my father-in-law and mother-in-law, also Holocaust survivors. And they came to North America after the Holocaust penniless and with scarred and tragic memories, and they rebuilt their lives. And building on their example, and with that impetus, that was the catalyst to start the Jewish movement.
Rabbi, you brought Ambassador Huckabee to meet with the two leading rabbis of the ultra-Orthodox community, designed to really demonstrate the importance, well, let's just say, of the foundation of the state of Israel. I'm hoping you can explain exactly what took place earlier today.
What took place was a wonderful meeting with these with the rabbis, with the ambassador, and they connected very quickly. The ambassador is unique in that he has an appreciation for the state of Israel, not only for their amazing economical and technological advances that the state has made, but also for its historical significance, the biblical significance of it, and the appreciation that he has for the scholars who maintain the tradition, who study the Torah and create that still the legacy and continuity of Torah study and the belief and the Bible that makes Israel not only a wonderful and amazing country in terms of in its geopolitical significance, but as the Holy Land. And they, the rabbis with the ambassador connected immediately on that, and they had a wonderful conversation and a meeting of the minds on many issues.
You heard me make mention earlier that there are close to 2 million ultra-Orthodox Jews living in Israel who don't necessarily get the same level of respect and acknowledgement their peers do. Folks like myself here in America, what are some of the things that I can do in order to bring more awareness, sir?
Well, one general, overriding theme, and this is what took place today in a conversation today, doesn't relate necessarily exclusively to the ultra-Orthodox, but that it relates to anti-Semitism in general. More specifically for the ultra-Orthodox, is the ambassador's view is that much of the anti-Semitism stems from the fact that people don't appreciate the Bible. People don't appreciate the significance of the people that study the Bible, study the Torah, that carry out the commandments of the Bible. The ambassador's view, to my understanding, is that he feels that much of the anti-Semitism that's the target against the ultra-Orthodox specifically, but in Jews in general, is the lack of foundation and grounding in the Bible and the importance of the Bible and the history of it and the importance that it has to mankind as a whole. And therefore, if people appreciated what the religious Jews are doing, what the ultra-Orthodox are doing in carrying out the word of God, then that certainly would alleviate the problem. The ambassador's view is that education is paramount. Educating the youth. And he feels, and we all feel, that the youth has not been brought up in the way to appreciate all of this, to understand it, understand the importance that the foundation of Western civilization is based, on the foundations of the truths, the eternal truths that are in the Bible.
Rabbi, it is not easy to have the ear of the ambassador to Israel. Yet again, you do, which speaks to the caliber of the man of who you are. My next question is, what happens now? Now that this meeting has occurred, what do you hope that happens, and what do you think will actually unfold?
Well, I think that, now that the ambassador has met these rabbis and he has actually come into contact with the community, with the ultra-Orthodox community, which he really hasn't in the past. Communication is paramount and the foundation for growth to develop any idea, any concept. And now that he has that connection and the lines of communication are open, I am hoping and believing that there will be a dialogue, that it will be an exchange of ideas and issues. I certainly hope on a personal level that I will be able to continue the relationship with the ambassador. We do have a friendship, and I hope we can build on that, and it certainly appears that we can. And when there is a communication and there's dialogue, there's exchange of ideas. And we both did start to exchange ideas in terms of education and in terms of awareness and making the public aware, the general public aware, and specifically education for the youth, which we both feel is so lacking in the world at large. And even in some of the traditional areas in America, where one would expect that would be a given, and that also is lacking there as well. So I'm hoping that this will be the foundation, the springboard for continued dialogue, communication, and friendship, and which will lead to great initiatives to solve a lot of these problems.
And yet again, it will also bring more awareness, and that's because of you, sir. We have been speaking with Rabbi David Hofstedter, kind enough to join us right here on the Live Zone. I truly appreciate your time. This has been an honor, sir.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to be with you.
All right, guys, we'll take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Denial of coexistence and a total destruction of shared humanity. Hamas committed the worst terrorist attacks against Israel and still brutally holds 50 hostages. Israel's airstrikes and gunfire, as well as restrictions to humanitarian aid, are pushing Palestinian civilians in Gaza deeper into death and starvation. Not only in Gaza, but also in the West Bank, the Palestinian people's right to life, dignity, and coexistence is repeatedly being denied. In the wider Middle East region, sirens and airstrikes have become the new normal. Keeping in mind the pressing urgency in addressing these concerning realities, let me stress the following 3 points. First, we call on all parties in the region, notably Israel and Hamas, to recover common humanity. The horrific casualties, including 17,000 children killed in Gaza, the hunger, chaos, and killing in and around the GHF distribution sites, and the widespread destruction of civilian infrastructure, including religious, health, and UN sites, all elucidate staggering evidence of a loss of fundamental humanity. Meanwhile, we will not forget the terror and the shock that Hamas inflicted on Israel on October 7th, 2023. It is unconscionable that Hamas again still holds hostages and remains underneath tunnels regardless of the fear and despair of civilians in Gaza. As starvation surges, we call on Israel to end all restrictions on humanitarian assistance and allow the UN to deliver life-saving aid to those in need throughout Gaza. In this respect, we reaffirm our strong support for all humanitarian agencies of UN, including OCHA and UNRWA. Both parties must protect civilians and faithfully engage in talks to secure an immediate ceasefire and release of hostages. The war in Gaza must end now. Second, Israel and Palestinians, Jews, Muslims, and Christians must coexist in lasting peace and security. Any action that hinders this simple but clear proposition must immediately come to a halt. Violence by settlers in the West Bank, regardless of the nationality of the victims, is unacceptable. And thus, all perpetrators must be held accountable in accordance with clear international standards. Israel must cease settlement activities in the occupied Palestinian territory, which are contrary to international law and Security Council resolutions. We oppose the announcement by Israel on the resumption of E1 settlements. This only will bifurcate a non-contiguous West Bank and further hamper future prospect for the two-state solutions. We also reject calls to forcibly relocate Palestinians in or outside of Gaza, such as the so-called humanitarian city plan, slated for the rubble where the city of Rafah once stood. We continue to extend our consistent support on efforts to revive the two-state solution. Third, all players must strive for de-escalation and stability throughout the region through diplomacy. We call on key players in the regions to adhere to the purpose and principles of the UN Charter, including the peaceful settlement of disputes and respect for territorial sovereignty. All actions that further aggravate insecurity, either on land or sea, must stop. Amid the endless spillover of violence in the region, we must seek ways to achieve peace through dialogue and diplomacy. In particular, ongoing talks in the region on non-proliferation now provide us with an important moment for diplomacy. We thus call on all parties in the region to seize any opportunity to secure regional peace and stability for the benefits of the people. I thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Representative of Republic of Korea. I now give the floor to the representative of Somalia.
السيد الرئيس
Mr. President,
أعرب في مستهل
at
كلمتي
the outset,
عن تقدير بلادي
I express my country's
لعقد هذه الجلسة
appreciation for
المفتوحة
holding this open
في وقت
debate at a
تتصاعد فيه
time when the
التحديات
challenges
التي تواجه
and accumulated
منطقة الشرق
crises facing the Middle East region
وتستمر الأزمات
are
المتراكمة
escalating
في التفاقم
without
دون حلول
any
جذرية.
bold and rooted solutions.
كما نشكر السيد خالد خياري مساعد الأمين العام
I would also like to thank Mr. Khalid Khayari, Assistant Secretary General for the Middle East, for his valuable briefing on current developments. Mr. President, the occupied Palestinian territory, and in particular the Gaza Strip, continue to witness one of the most tragic human tragedies in modern times. With the number of victims exceeding 56,000, most of them women and children, with unprecedented destruction of civilian infrastructure, and millions deprived of water, food, or health care, the moral and legal imperative demands urgent and decisive action by this Council. the situation in Gaza has entered the stage of a de facto famine, with daily cases of children and adults collapsing as a result of severe malnutrition, a number of civilians dying as a result of military action, and others died starving to death in a scene that embodies a collective moral and humanitarian failure. Civilians have been deprived of even a crumb of bread.
Yet again, the UN Security Council discussing all things with regard to the war in Gaza. We'll keep a close eye on that. Back here in the nation's capital, all eyes remain on the state of Idaho. That's where Brian Kohberger, a former PhD student who pleaded guilty in the fatal stabbing of 4 University of Idaho students, is now hearing from the victims' families in court for the first time. This just minutes away as the judge considers his sentence for the crimes. Let's go ahead and take a listen in.
On whether to speak today, because the truth is, you don't deserve power over my feelings, my words, or me.
Thank you. In the end, I realized this moment isn't about you. It's about justice for Xana, Ethan, Kaylee, and Maddie. It's about honoring the beautiful people they were and still are in God's eyes. On November 13th, 2022, a piece of my heart was ripped away. There's no way to ever fully describe the weight of losing my sister, my best friend. No sentence or punishment will ever come close to the justice Xana, Ethan, Kaylee, and Maddie deserve. Xana was everyone's best friend. She was kind, she was funny. She was a gift to each person she was able to make an impact on. Xana was someone I turned to when I needed direction or advice. Although I am her older sister, I often found myself looking up to her. She had a radiant energy that everyone loved, and she always knew the right way to approach a problem. She knew how precious and special life was, and she truly did live every day to the fullest. Yet her story was cut short by an act of evil. I believe in a God whose justice is not bound by this courtroom. I find peace knowing that judgment ultimately belongs to Him. For your sake, I hope one day you feel the full weight of what you did. I hope you take accountability. I hope you truly experience the guilt and you surrender yourself to Jesus Christ. Because no punishment on this earth can ever compare to the isolation and pain of eternal separation from God. Xana deserved more. They all did. But I come here to say this. I am strong. I am brave. I'm a fighter, just like Xana. And you don't get to control how I move forward or what I believe. I walk with the comfort of knowing I will see my sister again. Xana didn't get the future she deserved. She won't be the maid of honor at my wedding, the cool aunt to my future children. I'll never hear her laugh or see her light up a room ever again. But I will carry her with me for the rest of my life. I will live in her honor, fight to be the best kind of woman and someone she's proud of, to make sure the world never forgets who she was. Xana's story doesn't end with what was taken from her. It lives through the love she gave, the people she touched, and the legacy our family will protect. Her light still shines, and her voice will echo louder than this pain. You didn't take that from us, and you never will.
Thank you.
I just want to say before I start, I'm Xana's dad, Jeff Kernodle. It's been a hard road down, you know, because she's gone. And I want to thank everybody, other their families that's speaking so far, spoke about things. I agree with everything they have to say. It all comes back to a lot of the same things that I've had to deal with and we as a family have had to deal with. And that brings me basis of what I'm talking about a little bit is on my way up here, flying up here in the plane, and about halfway through the flight, this little girl is calling out for her dad. Hey, dad, and then in my mind, I was kind of half asleep. It's dark on the plane. I heard Xana calling out for me like she did, back when she was little, 5 years old. And those times were hard. It was chaotic, but we always had something to work toward that was in a positive direction, compared to right now, which is necessarily not as positive as that, for sure. And I know I miss Xana a lot. My life's been changed, and Xana had a great impact on me. And the impact was when she was gone, I realized how important she was, and what she really did for me, influenced me, was way beyond what I ever thought. She'd call me up on the weekends, check on me, see who's with me. She's like accountability to your youngest daughter. And that really made a big difference. It made me really think about things and what it's all about, That's the things that I miss the most, is those calls on the weekends, the calls at 11 at night. What's going on? You want to meet my friend? Whoever she's with, a couple of her friends, I can meet them, talk to them. And she always did that. And it's pretty cool. Pretty cool. I really miss that. And she made a big impact on me, on other people, her family. But the impact that she made is so extensive on what happened here. And it goes so far. People from everywhere in the world, are following things, and Xana has made a difference in their lives. So, countless people told me that. They might not even know her. They never knew anything about her. It's what they see, and they just love her and say how they wish she could have been their friend. Could have been their friend, could have hung out, and it's like, this is a blessing, this is the little kid was, and definitely was a big blessing in my life, and so is Jasmine, and basically, we worked hard to do the things we did, through the times they were growing up, and through those times, I realized that I wanted both of them to graduate college, and that'd be the ultimate thing for them to do to prepare for the world. Then it came back to me, Xana didn't get to finish college. He had it all figured out. And this all just came back to me when I was there, and that little girl was on the plane doing that. It's like where I was going, what I was going here for. And then I just realized and thought to myself about the wonderful life that she had and we had together. And I still get to have with Jasmine, but that's the part that really counted. It's the part that really counted, is those memories. And those are what I have left, the memories with her and the ones I can make with her, and the life that I can go on with now, which is what she wants. And I say that in present tense because that's what she wants, because I've been told that, I've been countless ways that she's out there and has a way to communicate, which I'm very grateful for. That goes to say that the impact of what happened to them, all 4 kids, goes so much further than just not me, the parents, the families, the community. It goes so far because a lot of kids, in the colleges, just for an example, they lock their doors now. The door wasn't locked in the back. you know, at Penn State or wherever it was, all the colleges, I know that I've heard they all lock their doors now. So maybe the impact that it's gonna make is gonna help out and maybe protect some people. Having this outreach and having the influence of what these kids, what happened to these kids did, you know? All I know is I was 7 miles away when it happened, and she wasn't feeling that good. It was 11:30, and I almost went over to Susanna's to say, and I would have been sitting right there on that couch, and you had to deal with me. So they would have had a chance, and I regret that, and I regret not going. But the reason why I didn't is because Susanna said, don't be drinking and driving. You got the rental car, don't be drinking and driving, you know, the week before that. So she would have been mad at me to do that. But I really wish I would have drunk and drove, you know, because they would have had a chance, all four of them. At this point, I just have to go on. We're gonna go on with everything and make things better in my life, because that's what it's all about. I have closure in things. And the part that we miss is Santa, her influence, her smile, the things that she did. And we have the memories left, the great memories. And she just wants us to make more memories and not be sad or upset or shocked or taken for that, you know? And that's what we're gonna do. We just have to. That's all I got.
Thank you for your words and your courage, and bless your family.
Next, Kim Coronado would like to address the court.
Thank you, Your Honor. My name is Kim Coronado. I am Xana's aunt. I was very blessed to have her in my life, in our family. And I thought I had everything in my head, what I wanted to say, but it kind of went out. And I'm always looking for the positive thing, because evil, hate can destroy people. And that's what it started doing with our family. It created anger with our family members. And then I had to look, because Xana was everything that the media, her friends said. She was that fun, loving, high-spirited, beautiful person. And I no longer get to get my nails done with her, have lunch with her. Sorry. But how I look at it now is this tragedy, this horrible tragedy on all of the 4 children, has brought us closer. You united us with your actions. We're united now, and we're stronger than ever. We have family and friends now that we never knew we had. And, you know, this is probably going to bother everybody, but Brian, I'm here today to tell you I have forgiven you, because I no longer could live with that hate in my heart. And for me to become a better person, I have forgiven you. And anytime you want to talk and tell me what happened, get my number. I'm here, no judgment, because I do have answers or questions that I want you to answer. And I'm here. I'll be that one that'll listen to you, okay? Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you very much.
My name is Stratton Knodel, and I'm Xana's uncle, Jeff's brother. Sitting here today listening to all the stories and feelings and feeling the pain from everybody is a pretty powerful thing. It's each time a statement was read, it sort of would tug into my center core as I felt everybody's anguish. And Xana meant a lot to us, and we loved her very much. But I started thinking about, instead of rehashing everything that everybody else has talked about, I wanted to direct it another direction toward Brian and what he's done to his family, his parents, his siblings, his friends, his universe. He has contaminated, tainted their family name, and pretty much made a horrible, miserable thing to be ever related to him. And I know that that's what he has to live with, and that has to be his pain. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Next, Your Honor, I believe Randy Davis, stepfather to Xana Kernodle, would like to address the court.
Hi, my name's Randy, stepdad of Xana. I just feel the same way we all do. All of us are united because of something that happened, and I am grateful to know and have met some new family because of this awful event. But this is probably the last time we're all going to be in the same room together, let's be real. So I can say, I love you all, and I feel your pain. And just God bless us all, you know? Just get through it. I had stuff wrote up. It was probably best I didn't read it out. Probably get kicked out of here, so. You know, I'll share one thing to you guys, not to you, with Xana. So I was working in North Dakota and came home, and Jazzy and Xana had taken our son Elijah and put him in a dress, makeup, and it was awful, you know. I was like, I don't know. She was funny. I told her she'd be in the movies and be somebody great one day like that. And now she is just above us as an angel with all the other beautiful kids. So let's hold that to our hearts, because this evil thing is not going to take nothing from us. You, man, I don't know what my limits are here, but I'm really struggling, dude. I am struggling, because I want to just be out in the woods with you just so I can teach you about loss and pain. I love God. I wouldn't take your life. That's up to him. But I guarantee you, you are weak. God, I would just give a moment, man, 5 minutes out in the woods. Oh, man. Ooh. You're going to go to hell. I know people believe in other stuff. You're evil. There's no place for you in heaven. You took our children. You are gonna suffer, man. I'm shaking because I want to reach out to you, but I hope you feel my energy, okay? Go to hell.
Next is Kara Northington, Xana's mother.
I'm Kara Northington. I am Xana Kernodle's mother.
This letter is to you, really. But it is for my daughter, who was murdered by you. Today I stand before you, the man who is responsible for murdering my beautiful daughter, Xana Kernodle. My daughter was beautiful both inside and out. She possessed love for those around her and had a light so bright it will live on forever in our hearts. She brought joy and laughter to her friends, her family, and anyone in her presence. Our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, now has her in his loving arms in heaven, where she can never be harmed ever again for eternity. Because of her, I came to know my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Because of her, many will come to Christ. It is Christ who lives in me that has given me the strength to forgive you. It was of no power of my own. In return, the Lord has filled me with joy, hope, and peace that surpasses all understanding. Jesus has allowed me to forgive you for murdering my daughter without you even being sorry or asking for this. This is only possible because he who lives in me is greater than any evil in this world. For God hath not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. I do not fear you or even let you rent space in my head anymore. This forgiveness has released me from any and all evil you have inflicted on me and my family. It has allowed me to let our Lord deal with you. You have accepted a deal that will prevent you from receiving the death penalty. Nothing man can do to you can ever compare to the wrath of God. Inevitably, you will stand before our Lord and will have to answer to him over the sins you have committed in murdering our children. I pray you come to the end of yourself before that day. Whether you like it or not, heaven is for real, and so is hell. The innocent life of Xana that you stole from myself and my family, and the destruction it has caused. I am washing my hands of you and turning you over to my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, whom vengeance belongs to. In closing, I want to read a passage from the Bible, Ephesians 6, King James Version. Finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and then in the power of his might. Put on the whole armor of God, that ye may be able to withstand the wiles of the devil. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Wherefore, take unto you the whole armor of God, that ye may be able to withstand in the evil day, that ye may be able to stand in the evil day. I'm not going to share memories of Xana or any more of the goodness of her with you, because I do not want that to be in your head. I don't want it to be in your head. You don't deserve that. You don't deserve our good memories that we have. I do pray for you. I pray that you come to the end of yourself. I pray that before this life is over, that you ask our Lord and Savior in your heart and to forgive you. I do pray for that. But after today, I wash my hands of you, and you are no longer a thing. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't believe the state has any other victim impact statements.
Okay. Right, state can argue.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just as a housekeeping matter to start, there will be the issue of restitution. That is, the documentation is being gathered, and we ask if the court would defer that for 30 days so we can present it in an orderly fashion and make sure it's comprehensive for everyone.
Any objection to leaving restitution open 60 days? All right.
Thank you, Your Honor. I think it's necessary and appropriate to share for everyone here, including the court, the background that brings us in front of Your Honor today for these proceedings. As the record reflects, and as everybody in this courtroom knows, the defendant has pleaded guilty to all 5 counts charged in the indictment. Under oath before Your Honor, he has admitted that the charges against him are true. He has reassured the court that he has not been coerced or threatened to make those admissions. And Your Honor did an extraordinary job in taking the pleas back on July 2nd. We appreciate the court's discipline and insight. The defendant has also waived appeal on the multitude of rulings from this court and Your Honor's predecessor in Latah County on dozens, literally dozens of motions seeking to dismiss the case, seeking to control or limit evidence, seeking to offer evidence that would not be appropriate. And we appreciate the court's consistent rulings based on the law, based on the facts. As Your Honor will recall, on June 18th, it's just really not that long ago, we appeared before this court for arguments on what became the defendant's final motions to this court. Motion where they wanted to offer evidence suggesting that other people were responsible for the defendant's actions, and the motion seeking essentially an indefinite continuance of the trial. It was readily apparent to all of us in the courtroom from Your Honor's comments that those motions were not going to be granted. So we returned to Moscow and continued with what we had been working on for months in preparation for trial. We had no qualms about going to trial if trial was what was necessary and appropriate. The following week after we were in court, we were approached by the defense with an inquiry about a possible plea. And I can tell the court this is the first suggestion ever that there was any consideration, because indeed, the defense had maintained from the beginning that Mr. Kohberger, the defendant, was factually innocent. It's clear that the reality of the evidence and the case that had been investigated and prepared and that we were ready to present in court became a reality. Our reaction, among other things, was to reach out to all the families. And in fact, later that week, on Thursday and Friday of that last week of June, we met with representatives by teams, virtual meetings, with representatives of all the families. And we talked about the status of the case, and the upcoming trial and things that related to the trial. And we also let them know that there had been an inquiry about whether there might be an offer for a plea. And we asked the family members for their thoughts and feelings. And they were candid. And they have been candid since, and we respect that. And we understand, recognize, and acknowledge that there was a difference of opinion among representatives of the different families. We understand that. One of the challenges of this case, one of the unique things about this case is we have multiple victims, each unique unto themselves, their families and friends unique unto themselves, and all of them entitled to their opinions, all of them entitled to their thoughts. Over the following weekend, our prosecution team, very skilled attorneys who were personally as well as professionally deeply invested in this case, met. And we talked, and the decision was reached. Well, to start with, were there to be any sort of plea offer or discussion, there's only one possibility. And that would be for the defendant to plead guilty straight up to all charges. There would be no bargaining about counts. There would be no bargaining about reduced sentences. And so we made the proposal to the defense that if the defendant was willing to plead guilty up front to all 5 counts as charged and waive appeal of the court's myriad decisions during the past 2.5+ years on all these motions that would have consumed years, if not decades, of time in the future. By the end of the weekend, we were notified the defendant was prepared to plead guilty as charged and factually acknowledge his responsibility in court for these horrible crimes. Obviously, those discussions and negotiations were confidential. And as Your Honor noted, I believe that was necessarily so, because if the defendant had decided not to plead guilty, it would have been devastating to our jury pool for there to be public information that there had been consideration by either party to a plea resolution. And protecting the prospective integrity of a trial after so many years was paramount. So, the end of the weekend came. We notified the victims' families of what had occurred. I recognize and acknowledge personally, and I respect the fact that of these fine, suffering people here, not everybody agreed with the decision we make. I accept that. It's my responsibility in the end. I recognize that that's the duty of the office that I hold. So now, it is time for the judicial system to impose final judgment and close the door on this chapter of these tragedies. As the court is aware, by the agreement of the parties, it is the state's prayer. Perhaps have the Elmo police turned on. Thank you. That on count 1, the felony burglary, that the court sentenced the defendant to the maximum period of 10 years fixed in the custody of the Idaho Department of Correction. Then on count 2, that the court sentenced the defendant to fixed life for the murder of Maddie Mogan. On count 3, that the court
sentenced the defendant to fixed life for the murder of Kaylee Gonzalez. On count 4, that the court sentenced the defendant to fixed life for the murder of Xana Kernodle. On count 5, that the court sentenced the defendant to fixed life for the murder of Ethan Chapin. And the state further prays that these sentences be ordered to run consecutively, back to back, not at the same time, to recognize and respect the unique individuality of each of these beautiful young people whose lives were taken brutally and for no reason. And hopefully now, as we have heard earlier this morning, it is time to afford the families and the friends and the community and the state of Idaho and the nation and the world to move forward. We can't undo, and we can never undo, the horror of what occurred on the early morning hours of November 13th, 2022 at 1122 King Street in Moscow, Idaho. For a long time, the presiding district judge in Latah County was John Stegner, who eventually became a member and a justice of the Idaho Supreme Court. And Justice Stegner often observed that even God cannot change the past. But everyone in this room has the ability to take themselves forward. And we want the judicial system to afford them the opportunity today to do that. From today forward, our memories should be focused on these innocent victims whose lives were taken, on their families, on their friends, on the community. The court has heard discussion, talk today, reminiscences today about a special family that our victims shared, not just their natural, legal, and biological families, not just their university family within their sororities, for example. But this family. This is the picture taken on November 12th, 2022, of the special family of 1122 King Road. And you can see all 6 of these dynamic, vibrant, loving, special, innocent faces taken together just across the street from their residence, and barely 12 hours before 4 of them would be brutally murdered in their sleep. They've been described consistently as being bright, caring, vivacious, with futures we can only imagine now. But they were, and they remain, a special family that I think we should all recognize and appreciate. So it's time to move forward. There have been a number of statements directed specifically at the defendant today, I have one last thought. After Your Honor imposes judgment and sentences the defendant to spend the rest of his life in prison, in other words, sentence the defendant to die in prison, he's going to stand up in the belly chains and the leg irons that he's wearing today, and he's going to be escorted into the custody of the Idaho Department of Correction. And the door will close behind him forever. That is the closure that we seek, that all of these people, these loving friends and family deserve, so that we can move forward. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. All right, does the defense have evidence to present today? All right. Does defense wish to make argument today?
Runner, we do not wish to make arguments. Mr. Kohberger, along with his legal team, is prepared for the court to enter judgment.
All right, Mr. Kohberger, you have an opportunity to make a statement if you wish to. I take it you are declining.
I respectfully decline.
Well. Please. All right, let me start this morning by acknowledging and thanking those that have come here today in support of their loved ones, and I appreciate your courage and your strength. And I hope that you are able to move on as best as possible. Thank counsel for the professionalism that they've exhibited throughout this case. It has been my great honor to preside in this case and to help bring, to the extent possible, some resolution and hopefully justice to this case. During the quiet morning hours of November 13, 2022, a faceless coward breached the tranquility of 6 beautiful young people and senselessly slaughtered them, 4 of them. Who committed this unspeakable evil was unknown for several weeks, but due to the killer's incompetence and outstanding police work by numerous local, state, and federal law enforcement agencies, the person that slithered through that sliding glass door at 1122 King Road now stands before the world and this court unmasked. This unfathomable and senseless act of evil has caused immeasurable pain and loss. No parent should ever have to bury their child. This is the greatest tragedy that can be inflicted upon a person. Parents who took their children to college in a truck filled with moving boxes had to bring them home in hearses lined with coffins. The loss this killer inflicted was not just the death of these people's children, siblings, grandchildren, as we've heard today. It has ripped a hole in their soul, destroying a special part of their very essence. Any person who is a parent defines themselves foremost as such. It is their existence and purpose of being. And it has been stolen from these parents. None of us have experienced the loss these victims have in the unspeakable way that they have. And therefore, none of us can, nor should we, question the way in which they have handled their loss. Whether that be in private mourning, removed as far as possible from this media circus, or in front of a camera demanding retribution with the loudest megaphone. I've listened intently to the stories and pain that have been shared today, with great awe at the courage and resilience of the surviving family members of those wonderful children. I've listened also to the surviving roommates, both in person and through their friends. And I can't think of how, frankly, courageous they have been despite the hell that they have faced by uncaring people who have come up with all kinds of crazy theories about two kids simply being kids. The parents, siblings, and other family members who have spoken today are designated as victims in our legal system. But going forward, I hope that they can shed that label, as it gives too much power to the evil that condemned them to that role. They are and should be known as survivors, fighters, and foremost as witnesses to the tremendous lives of value and unbounded promise of these four young people. But those speaking today and those who did not speak, but who carry the same burden, this same loss, now carry forward the memories of these now perpetually young people, these forever children. These survivors carry the responsibility of ensuring that the voices of these children, Maddie, Kaylee, Xana, and Ethan, are never forgotten, and the positive impacts that they have had on so many lives are never minimized, and that the love they shared, the light that they shined onto others is forever celebrated. As we sit here today, this case is ending, and we are now certain who committed these unspeakable acts of evil, but we don't know, and what we may never know is why. I share the desire expressed by others to understand the why. But upon reflection, it seems to me, and this is just my own opinion, that by continuing to focus on why, we continue to give Mr. Kohberger relevance. We give him agency and we give him power. The need to know what is inherently not understandable makes us dependent upon the defendant to provide us with a reason, and that gives him the spotlight, the attention, and the power he appears to crave. Yet even if I could force him to speak, which legally I cannot, how could anyone ever be assured that what he speaks is the truth? Do we really believe, after all of this, he's capable of speaking the truth or of giving up something of himself to help the very people whose lives he destroyed? Rather, I suspect the so-called reason would be dished out in enticing, self-serving, and aggrandizing untruthful bits, leaving people wanting more information, more insight, and thus enhancing even further the power he seeks to hold. Even if we could get truthful insight into his why, I suspect it would not in any way quench one's thirst for actually understanding why in the first instance. Because there is no reason for these crimes that could approach anything resembling rationality. No conceivable reason could make any sense. And in the end, the more we struggle to seek explanation for the unexplainable, the more we try to extract a reason, the more power and control we give to him. In my view, the time has now come to end Mr. Kohberger's 15 minutes of fame. It's time that he be consigned to the ignominy and isolation of perpetual incarceration. I know there has been concern about him collaborating on books or movies or other media projects, and I truly hope that someone does not stoop to affording him this spotlight that he desires in the name of clicks, royalties, or profits. While criminal behavioralists should study him away from the spotlight in an attempt to prevent other would-be killers from acting on their worst impulses, There should be no need for that to spill over into the public eye. The great Idaho jurist Edward Lodge was known for trying to find something positive about every person he ever sentenced. And with over a half a century as a trial judge, that was a lot of people. This was often challenging, and I recall in one case he said that the best he could come up with was the defendant had good penmanship. Truth be told, I'm unable to come up with anything redeeming about Mr. Kohberger because his grotesque acts of evil have buried and hidden anything that might have been good or intrinsically human about him. His actions have made him the worst of the worst. Even in pleading guilty, he is giving nothing hinting of remorse or redemption, nothing suggesting even a recognition or understanding, let alone regret for the pain that he has caused. And therefore, I will not attempt to speak about him further, other than to simply sentence him so that he is forever removed from civilized society. And accordingly, based upon his conduct and based upon the record before this court, recognizing the standards that govern this court's sentencing decisions as set forth in State v. Toohill, I hereby sentence Mr. Kohberger as follows. On count 1, burglary, 10 years fixed, 0 years indeterminate. I also impose a fine of $50,000. Count 2, first-degree murder of Madison Mogan. I sentence the defendant to a fixed term of life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, a fine of $50,000, and a civil penalty of $5,000 payable to the family of the victim. On count 3, for first-degree murder of Kaylee Gonsalves, I sentence the defendant to a fixed term of life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, a fine of $50,000, and a civil penalty of $5,000 payable to the victim of the family, or to the family of the victim, pardon me. On count 4, for the first-degree murder of Xana Kernodle, I sentence the defendant to a fixed term of life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, a fine of $50,000, and a civil penalty of $5,000 payable to the family of the victim. On count 5, for the first-degree murder of Ethan Chapin, I sentence the defendant to a fixed term of life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, a fine of $50,000, and a civil penalty of $5,000 payable to the family of the victim. The sentences on counts 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 shall run consecutively to one another. Restitution will be left open for 60 days. Defendant will be required to submit a DNA sample and a right thumbprint impression to the Department of Corrections and comply with the DNA Database Act. I remand the defendant to the custody of the Idaho State Board of Corrections for to be imprisoned in an appropriate facility in execution of the sentence where he will remain until he dies. Though you have waived your right to appeal, you do have a right to file a notice of appeal, and any such appeal must be filed within 42 days of the date of the written judgment, which will be entered shortly hereafter. Though the appeal, you should be aware, may be deemed a violation of the plea agreement, and so I certainly suggest you discuss that with counsel if that is your desire. I ask the media and public present to allow the families to be escorted out first before they leave. Again, thank you to everyone for your stories today. I am strengthened by them, and I am encouraged by your humanity and strength, and God bless you. We're adjourned.
And there you have it. It's official. As the judge stated, Brian Kohberger forever removed from society. The judge giving Mr. Kohberger life without parole, 4 consecutive life terms with an additional 10 years for burglary. When given the opportunity to address the court, Mr. Kohberger declined to do so. Yet again, he will now spend the rest of his life behind bars. We'll take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
We're adjourned.
They've adjourned.
We've adjourned. Can we adjourn? We're adjourned? Everybody can leave.
That makes sense. We got a second motion.
I was to Alex, the walk camera was so close to me. I was in between them and the chair. I was like this the whole time. And then, yeah, I moved up to stand up. It was like shooting video or something. Or was like on my back, like Filipinos. So then I just grabbed it. I tried to move around, but it just oh yeah. Hurry. No. One question. Just like yeah.
Thanks, brother. How's it going, man? Can you check out when they're coming out too, brother? Yeah, thanks.
Honestly, if they just well, no, they're putting his passport in the pocket.
When you're on the test, you're like every person you can refer
Yeah, I don't know how to like get not this last round. No, or even more before that.
Do it now. 2 minutes until the briefing.
Hey Siri, set it.
Or is that yours? Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. You think?
Hello. Good afternoon, everybody. We have a special guest with us today who will speak momentarily. But first, I would like to begin with a message from the White House to the families of the victims in the brutal murder case in Idaho, who were sharing their heart-wrenching stories about their loved ones before the court today and addressing the evil killer who took 4 precious souls. We are so sorry for the grief and the pain you have experienced at the hands of such a vicious and evil killer. Our nation grieves with you, and we will never forget the precious souls who were lost in this horrific act of evil. If it were up to the president, he would have forced this monster to publicly explain why he chose to steal these innocent souls. May God bless and watch over everyone affected by this unimaginable tragedy, especially the parents who lost their children. Let me begin with a few scheduling items off the top. Later this afternoon, President Trump will deliver the keynote address at the Winning the AI Race Summit here in Washington, D.C. President Trump believes it is non-negotiable that the United States wins the AI race, which is why today, President Trump will announce a bold and comprehensive AI action plan to sustain and enhance America's global AI dominance. Under President Trump's leadership, our country will lead the world in AI to secure a brighter future for all Americans, massively grow our economy, and protect our national security. The president will also sign 3 executive orders at the event this afternoon. On Friday morning, President Trump will travel to Scotland for a working visit that will include a bilateral meeting with Prime Minister Starmer to refine the historic U.S.-UK trade deal. On the topic of trade, yesterday, President Trump accomplished something no other president has ever achieved. The president secured and announced 3 major trade deals with the Philippines, Indonesia, and Japan, all in one day. President Trump is finally putting a stop to our country getting ripped off. As a result of the president's successful negotiating tactics, many foreign markets are now being opened to American industries for the very first time, and harmful trade barriers are being broken down. Thanks to President Trump, these countries around the world are agreeing to open their markets to American-made products and goods for the first time, which will lead to a boom in sales and profits for American businesses right here at home. As President Trump said, he will only lower tariff rates if a country agrees to open their market to American-made products. If not, they will continue to face tariffs and pay a steep price to do business in the United States of America, which remains the best market on the face of the planet. Also this week, the president officially marked 6 months here at the White House. He made big promises to the American people on the campaign trail last year, and he has unquestionably delivered on those promises in record time. The president has defeated the Biden inflation crisis to make America affordable again. Core inflation is currently at its lowest level in 4 years, and prices for everyday goods are falling. The president's pro-growth policies have fueled massive job growth across our country. Since the president has taken office, our economy has added nearly 700,000 new jobs, with native-born American workers accounting for all job gains. The president has put the economic needs of families and of workers first. He signed the largest tax cuts for the middle class in American history, including no tax on tips, overtime, and Social Security. We have also seen the president unquestionably deliver on his promise to secure our southern border. He has ended Biden's illegal alien invasion, and for 2 months in a row, 0 illegal aliens were released into our country. The president has also, as you all know, initiated the largest mass deportation campaign in American history. The president has also restored law and order to make America safe again, another campaign promise he vowed to the American public. The United States of America is currently on track for its lowest murder rate on record, following this shift from the last administration to the Trump administration. The president has also ended Joe Biden's reckless war on American energy. U.S. oil and natural gas production are now surging, and summer gas prices reached their lowest level since 2021. The president has also rebuilt our military, another campaign promise. He just signed the largest military investment in decades to modernize our armed forces with cutting-edge technology to replenish our stockpiles and provide American troops with the best equipment in the world. The U.S. Army, Navy, Air Force, and Space Force have all reached their recruitment goals months in advance. The president has restored America's standing on the world stage, brought back peace through strength, and brokered numerous peace agreements to end wars. Again, all of this in just 6 months. He obliterated Iran's nuclear program to end the war between Israel and Iran, got NATO members to raise their defense spending to 5% of GDP, and secured a ceasefire between India and Pakistan, as well as brokering a historic agreement between Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of the Congo. The president has already received 3 different Nobel Peace Prize nominations for his peacemaking efforts. Again, all of this progress, all of these accomplishments have occurred in just 6 months. We are truly just getting started, and we look forward to working with all of you for the next 3.5 years. On another matter, over the past few days, Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard has unveiled shocking new evidence that former President Barack Obama and top aides in the Obama administration conspired to subvert President Trump's 2016 election victory and undermine the democratic will of the American people. While publicly pretending to engage in a peaceful transfer of power, in private, former President Obama went to great and nefarious lengths to try to sow discord among the public and sabotage his successor, President Trump. The new evidence released by the Director of National Intelligence, who is here with me today, confirms that the Obama administration manufactured politicized intelligence, which was later used as the justification for baseless smears against President Trump in an effort to try to delegitimize his victory before he even took the oath of office. The truth is that President Trump never had anything to do with Russia, and the Russia collusion hoax was a massive fraud perpetuated on the American people from the very beginning. And the worst part of this is Obama knew that truth, and so did all of the other corrupt officials involved in this scam, including former CIA Director John Brennan, former Director of National Intelligence James Clapper, former FBI Director James Comey, former Deputy Director Andrew McCabe, and many others. Director of National Intelligence Gabbard's report further confirms what we already knew. There was no collusion, no corruption, except on the part of Barack Obama and the weaponized intelligence agencies at the time. The Russia hoax was a blatant lie, all ginned up by Democrat political operatives that were signed off on by then President Obama and leaked to the news media to launch a years-long witch hunt against President Trump and his first administration. Allies of the president, including his own son, Donald Trump Jr., were disgustingly smeared as Russian assets, and some even had their lives destroyed because of this vicious lie. The president's first 2 years in office had this fake distraction hanging over it, and endless resources, time, and political capital were spent having to debunk these lies from the highest levels of our government. Now, nearly 10 years later, thanks to the declassification of documents by Director Gabbard, the truth has finally come to light. And this truth vindicates President Trump, his family, and his many allies and associates who were smeared with defamatory lies. President Trump was right from the beginning about all of this, and we are grateful that justice can be served. Now, we have even more damning evidence implicating those who tried to sabotage a duly elected president and did grave material harm to our republic. Thanks to additional important work done by CIA Director Ratcliffe, Committee Chairman Rick Crawford over the past few months, a newly declassified 2020 report prepared by the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, which DNI Director Gabbard has declassified, found that the intel community did not have any direct information that Russian President Vladimir Putin wanted to help elect President Trump in 2016. And in fact, Russia was actively preparing for a Hillary Clinton victory. But at the unusual direction of Barack Obama at the time, the intel community published implausible intelligence suggesting otherwise. Why? To sabotage the incoming president. This is truly one of the greatest political scandals in American history. And reporters at legacy outlets, some of which are sitting in this room today, like the New York Times and the Washington Post, were ridiculously awarded Pulitzer Prizes for their perpetuation of this hoax. It's well past time for those awards to be stripped from the journalists who receive them. It is not journalism to propagate political disinformation in service of the Democrat Party and those in the intelligence community who hand over out of context and fake intelligence to push a false political narrative. I will now pass it over to the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, to speak more about all of this, and then we will open it up for questions afterwards. Tulsi, thank you for being here.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. At President Trump's direction and with the support and coordination with the House Intelligence Committee Chairman Rick Crawford, today we've released a declassified Oversight Majority Staff report that was produced in September of 2020. The stunning revelations that we are releasing today should be of concern to every American. This is not about Democrats or Republicans. This has to do with the integrity of our democratic republic and American voters having faith that the votes cast will count. There is irrefutable evidence that detail how President Obama and his national security team directed the creation of an intelligence community assessment that they knew was false. They knew it would promote this contrived narrative that Russia interfered in the 2016 election to help President Trump win, selling it to the American people as though it were true. It wasn't. The report that we released today shows in great detail how they carried this out. They manufactured findings from shoddy sources. They suppressed evidence and credible intelligence that disproved their false claims. They disobeyed traditional tradecraft intelligence community standards and withheld the truth from the American people. In doing so, they conspired to subvert the will of the American people who elected Donald Trump in that election in November of 2016. They worked with their partners in the media to promote this lie, ultimately to undermine the legitimacy of President Trump and launching what would be a years-long coup against him and his administration. We're here today because the American people deserve the truth, they deserve accountability, and they deserve justice. The records that we released on Friday that were ODNI records, Senator Chuck Grassley's release on Monday of what is known as the Clinton Annex, which was an appendix to the Department of Justice